At that point, I had 10 years of sobriety. There's no way addiction is going to come back and get me. That fucker took me down, and it took everything away from me within 3 months. I'm 6 years sober today, which is amazing. Through 12-step recovery. It's my second time round of being sober. The first time round I had 10 years, and I went out on OxyContin and Xanax and sleeping medication. So I convinced myself that as long as I didn't drink, I was still sober. But I lost everything 6 years ago after lying to a doctor to get drugs, knowing that I could get high off those drugs. I thought to myself, I heard that in America you can get all these mental drugs that are really great, and it's like a free pass. You can get high, but you're still sober because a doctor gave them to you. I thought, I'm invincible. I can just take these drugs, which are basically heroin, and as long as they're prescribed from a doctor, I'm still sober. But I was off my nut. I was doing a thing they call doctor shopping, where I would have 5 or 6 doctors, and I would just go to those doctors and lie to get as much of those drugs as I could into my system. You know that feeling where life's just difficult and you don't fit in and it's painful, and as an addict I feel without a solution life's really difficult. Like everything is hard. I can't connect. I don't know how other people do it. I feel like everyone else has a rule book for life and I don't have that rule book, so it's very hard for me to function. And I think that's common with most addicts. So that feeling, we call that a hole in the soul. For me, there's only 2 ways to fill that hole in the soul. There's drugs and drinking, which works in the short term but ruins my life. And then the second solution to the hole in the soul is a program of recovery. The 12-step program of recovery does the same job for me. I had tried for years to stop drinking and taking drugs. All the drugs, I did them, and I did them to excess. So I knew I had a problem probably about 5 years before I stopped the first time around. I realized, because I was in the music business, I was producing records, I was successfully doing that. I didn't have a normal structure in my life, so I could go and get drunk and high, and I could even work drunk and high, and it was fine. As long as I was making records that were doing well, I could turn up to the studio in any state, and I was working high a lot and constantly drinking, and all my friends at that time were also doing that, and we were making records together, and I was like, I can't be an alcoholic or a drug addict because everyone else is doing the same thing, so I'm no different. I realized looking back I was different, because when they all stopped, I didn't. I carried on until I lost consciousness, and when they all went home, I would secretly try to get oblivion from drinking and drugs. So I never really used and drank like they did, but I convinced myself I was fine. I started to get panic attacks. I'd never had one before, and I thought I was dying. I felt like the world was caving in on me. I didn't know what was happening, and I ended up walking, thinking I've lost my mind. I've gone crazy. That's what's happened to me. That's just what my life's going to be like now. I'm going to live as a crazy person. So I got into a taxi. I said, take me to the emergency room. I was in the emergency room just like this, just rocking back and forward like a proper psychopath. And the doctor came out and he said, get him into his own room because he can't be around this, he's going crazy. They put me into the kids ward in the little playpen with all Sesame Street creatures around me. That really happened, I didn't make that up. I was in the children's ward, that's where they put me to isolate me. And I was looking at Elmo and the Cookie Monster on this little chair going, okay, that's my life now. I'm just gonna live amongst the children's toys and gonna be like one of those people you see on the TV that have gone mental. So anyway, the doctor comes in, I told him all my symptoms, I thought I was going to die, everything was making me super anxious. He said, how much do you drink and how much drugs do you take? And I, in my head, thought I can't let him know the real amount, so I halved it. And he was like, oh wow, you need to, this is the half that I told him. He was like, you need to stop drinking and taking drugs because this is really bad. He gave me a pill to settle me down. The next day, I started to have these incredible panic attacks again. It's just all set in the fear, the anxiety. I'd never had one of these before. I'm like, I'm losing it again. This is it, I've lost my mind. I had a drink and it went away, the feeling. So I was like, oh wow. As long as I'm drinking all the time, this feeling won't affect me. So that's when I made the decision, I'm just going to drink all the time, constantly, because that's how I keep this feeling away. I went to see a psychiatrist. He said to me, you need to stop drinking because you're an alcoholic. And I was so offended. I was like, how dare you call me an alcoholic? I know people that drink more than me. I didn't. And that's the first time I'd heard that word. And I think a seed was sown in my head then. So he goes, don't drink with these sedatives. And in my mind, I'm like, drink with these sedatives. And I did that. And I lost maybe two or 3 months on that bender. When I'd left for London, I was with one girlfriend. When I got back to London, I'd moved in with someone else. Don't remember how it happened. I literally moved house. I don't remember it. It was a horrible time, and I hurt a lot of people. And that's when I thought, okay, I need to stop drinking and taking drugs. So I tried to. I called up the Alcoholics Anonymous hotline and I said, I need help. Someone came to get me. He took me to a meeting, my first meeting ever, and a guy got up and he told his story. And it was crazy. He'd been in mental institutions. He'd been arrested. He wet himself when he was doing an armed robbery. The story that the guy was saying, it was like, oh, I'm not an alcoholic. I haven't been in prison. I haven't been to a mental institution. I don't wet myself doing a bank robbery. And what I found out recently is I should have said, no, I haven't done any of those things yet. And that's another thing they say in the program. They're all yets. And at the time I thought, I'm not an alcoholic because this guy needs help. I don't need help. So I didn't go back and I carried on drinking. It got worse. It got worse and worse. And it ended up where I'd wake up, throw up, take neat vodka just to get out of bed. Not accepting that I was an alcoholic to becoming a fall down drunk every day was pretty quick. I just wanted oblivion. I just wanted to be out of it. That was my main thing in life. My life got so small and so depressing and so sad. It was just that one room became my world. Everything was in that room. As long as I had drugs and drink, I didn't need to leave the rooms. My life became dark and very sad and pathetic. And my girlfriend at the time said, this is really awful. And I know of this procedure you can have in Poland. They'll implant something under your skin to stop heroin and alcohol having an effect. And it's a surgical procedure. And I was desperate. Before I had the surgery, the doctor comes up to me and he goes, if you drink, in any time in this 6 months, if you drink, you're going to die. And I was like, whoa, well, that will definitely stop me drinking. There's no way. Who would drink knowing that? Had this implant, put it in. 3 days later, I was drinking again. I guess I didn't care if I died. My life was kind of so shit anyway. I didn't care if I died. So in my head, I was like, okay, I need to drink. Someone once told me if you put a gun to an alcoholic's head and you say, don't drink, otherwise I'm going to shoot you, and you put a glass of alcohol in front of the alcoholic, their mind process will go, I wonder if I could drink that before the bullet actually killed me to get a buzz off it. That's how I felt. This is going to kill me, but I can't not do it. I had this implant and I was drinking and it had a crazy effect on me and I blacked out. I went missing. I don't know exactly what happened. To this day, I don't know what happened. I think the combination of the medication, the drugs I was taking, the sedatives and the drink, I don't know how long I was missing for. It might have been like 3 or 5 days. I was found in the outskirts of Warsaw. I'd been beaten up. I'd had all my stuff taken. I had broken ribs. I was in the street. I was literally on the side of the road. I don't know. Someone may have called an ambulance. They tried to get me in the ambulance. I remember fighting the ambulance crew. I had in my head that they were going to kill me. That's the psychosis. They took me to a hospital. They're all Polish. I can't speak Polish. I didn't have my phone. I was in and out of consciousness, but I remember they would come in and it was like a horror film. I would get injections. I'd be resisting injections, but they would come in and give me injections. I didn't know what they were saying. And it was terrifying. I was strapped down to the bed and I thought, oh, this is a psych ward. Like I'm on a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's why I'm like restrained and I get in these injections. And wow, that's crazy. I haven't thought about that for a while. I found out after that it was just the alcohol ward. It was just drunks like me. The guy next to me died while I was there. But they were just drunks and I was a drunk, so we should have been together. But I didn't know that at the time. My ex-wife found me in this hospital, and she came to see me, and she said, I've spoken to your mum and dad and they've paid for you to go to rehab. Now my mum and dad, they're not rich, and there was a huge amount of money for them to pay. My ex was clever. She goes, if you don't go, they won't get the money back. I was like, oh no, they can't. It's so expensive and they don't have that kind of money, and so I have to go to rehab, I guess. That journey from the Polish hospital to rehab in Kent, the whole journey was like, how long till I can drink and use drugs again? Because I don't want to stop forever. That's crazy. I just want to stop enough that people will get off my back and let me carry on drinking. I got into rehab, and for some reason, when I was in that rehab, I thought, after I'd had about a week clean, I thought, I don't want to live like that anymore. I realized how much I'd hurt people, how sad and horrible and dark and depressing my life was, and I had a little bit of willingness to not live like that anymore. That's all I had. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to take suggestion. That helped me to get the concepts of being sober and the concepts of the 12-step recovery process that I still try to live by today. So in rehab, I learned about the 12 steps. They're a bit confusing to look at on your own, so you need someone to take you through them, and that person's called a sponsor. And they kept saying to me in rehab, get a sponsor. When you get out, get a sponsor. When you get out, get a sponsor. And that stuck with me. That's the only thing that stuck with me for 2 or 3 weeks in rehab. I came out of there, went back to London, and I was like, I'm going to get high again and drink again. That's what I'm going to do. Back in my hometown, I'm going to do that. That's what I do. I went out to go and do that, and something in my head just went, just do that sponsor thing. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll try that. Instead of just going straight back to that horrible life, I'll just try that one thing that they told me that I still remember. So instead of going this way, I went that way and went to a meeting. I met a guy there called John, who was a plumber. We couldn't have been more different. He'd been a homeless drunk on the street, and he said he'd been sober for 10 years. I didn't believe him. I was like, you haven't done anything for 10 years? That's crazy, come on. So I said to him, I need help. And that was crucial, to ask him for help. I said, I need help. I'm about to use and drink again. I've just got out of rehab. Can you help me? And he said to me, I'll never forget, he said, you never have to drink or use again, and you can have life beyond your wildest dreams. And I thought, that sounds cheesy. I don't think that's true. But I'm going to take suggestion. That one thing just kept coming back, take suggestion. He said, we'll meet every Wednesday and I'll take you through these 12 steps. He took me through what's called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Here it is. We read it and we did the 12 steps. Somewhere in that process, the urge to drink and use left. I can't explain it, but it says in the book that it will go, and it did. But not just that, the fear lifted from me as well. Fear of life. Just life was so terrifying when I was using. But through those steps, the fear just gradually just lifted, and things just got a little bit easier, and life became a little bit less scary. And I had to make amends to people I'd hurt, and I would go and meet these people and say sorry for what I'd done. And every time I did that, I got more self-esteem. And my sponsor would say, you've got a problem with self-esteem. You're comatose or you're grandiose. You're either really big-headed or you feel like shit. There's nothing in the middle. You've got a self-esteem problem. And if you want self-esteem, you have to do esteemable actions. The 12 steps are all about that. So the 12 steps changed my life. Life just became color again. I could see in color. While I was using it, everything was black and white, or everything was black. But when I got sober, colour came back, and, you know, not every day was a skipping the roses day, but it was like a roller coaster. Being sober was exciting. It was a roller coaster of emotion. It wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, but it was real life, and I was really doing it. I was really doing real life, and it was a buzz, and I fucking loved it. And that thing he said about have life beyond your wildest dreams, it happened. He was right. I just put one foot in front of the other, kept going to meeting every day. I would share with people the problems I was having in my life, and I would meet people that had solutions to those problems. They would always say, it's in this book. Any problem you have is in this book. And I'd be like, what about this problem? And they'd go, it's in the book. And I'd go, no, it isn't. And I'd read it and it would be in there. And I'd be like, damn you, book. But this book, yeah, it changed my life. I've been scoring films in London. I moved here to work with Hans Zimmer. It was an amazing time. And I thought, I've got this now. I've got sobriety. I don't have to go to meetings. I don't need to call this sponsor guy anymore. I'm successful. I'm doing these amazing things in Hollywood. And, you know, this is my solution now. My solution now is, success, money, relationships. So I started to get high off those things rather than the program. I met Laura, and that was like, okay, my life is perfect now. I'd met the love of my life. I had a dream job. I wasn't very happy in that job, but it was fine because I was successful. Meeting Laura was an incredible thing. She was just newly sober, so we could like start this journey together. And that was a life-changing experience, obviously. But I let go of the program, and I let go of the sponsor, and I let go of the steps, and I let go of going to meetings. And one day I had a tiny little car accident. Wasn't serious, and something in my head went, get the drugs, get the painkillers, get the drugs, just fine. It's not using if his doctor's giving them to you. And I was like, oh yeah, you can get great drugs in America, and I'm still sober if I have these drugs, because the doctor prescribed it. So I went to a doctor, and like a train, the addiction came back, like it was back. They say that when you're not using, your addiction is just doing press-ups, push-ups in the corner, just getting more strength, and then the minute you let your guard down, it's way bigger. And I didn't believe that. At that point, I had 10 years of sobriety. There's no way addiction is going to come back and get me. That fucker took me down, and it took everything away from me within 3 months. Everything. I was probably using the drugs as prescribed by the doctor for less than a day before I was off and running. I didn't care about anything. The drugs became the top thing in my priority list. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about Laura. I didn't care about my job. I didn't care about my family. The using and the drugs became my most important thing, which is what happens to addicts. If you're using, the drugs are the most important thing. And we can't help it. Our brain is wired differently from other people. Laura did a great video about it, which you guys can watch. We're wired differently. If we use, the drugs or the alcohol become our main priority in life. And it's really sad, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately. And I was back in that horrible, dark, depressing, lonely, pathetic place that I told you about before in London. I was back there in sunny LA. My outsides changed, but my insides hadn't, and I was back in that little box again of depression, and I couldn't leave the apartment because I was too scared, and the pills became the solution to my life, but I couldn't stop taking them because I would feel so ill, because it's heroin basically. One day, I can't explain what happened. I just got like a bolt from the sky, or the God shot or whatever, that said, you've got to stop taking the drugs. They're going to take everything from you. I took all the tablets and I threw them down the toilet, which is bad for fish, apparently. I didn't realize that you can die if you stop taking Xanax cold turkey, and I was doing a lot of Xanax, and the painkillers are heroin, so it's heroin withdrawal and Xanax withdrawal together are horrendous. I remember trying to sleep, and I could just see these dark clouds approaching, just dark clouds approaching me, and I just said to Laura, I'm scared. I think I'm gonna die, because I thought that's what the clouds were. But when the clouds got over me, I had a seizure. Laura took me to the emergency room. I had another seizure on the bed, and I don't know if I died or whatever. Laura thinks I did. I turned blue, and everyone like rushed in, and they put her into a different room, and they had the things on me. So that's pretty intense. That's in Laura's book. She explains that, because I don't remember that, because I was obviously out of it, but Laura goes into that in her book. They got me back, and Laura said, you've got to go into rehab. So again, I found myself with nothing. Laura had left. Obviously, she said, I can't deal with this. She was sober, so I was putting her sobriety at risk because I was using around her, and she had to leave for her own safety, and so I ended up again just broken and lost, and it's worse than the first time though, because this time I'd lost 10 years of sobriety. As part of my makeup was being this sober guy, this long-term sober guy. Stephen's got 10 years sober. It was part of me, and I was proud of it. And although I hadn't drank, I'd lost my sobriety because I was using the mind-altering substance, and it ended up taking everything. It was the physical side was worse, the emotional side was worse, the shame was worse. I thought, I can't go back to meetings. So I thought, how am I going to get sober again? This book came back, the 12 Steps, the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And this idea of a sponsor, they were saying to me in treatment, you need to get a sponsor. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I did last time. So I came out broken, lost, not wanting to go back to meetings, thought that people in meetings wouldn't speak to me because I had been going occasionally saying that I was sober, but I wasn't, I was using. So I had a lot of shame. I got another sponsor. I remember I met this guy before I went into treatment who seemed like a hard-line guy, and I asked him for help. And we went through the book again. He said, you've got to go back to those meetings and tell them what happened. So I went back into the meetings where I'd been lying, and I stood up, and it was really difficult. And I said, you know, I've been lying to you guys. I've been using the whole time. I just got out of rehab. And the love that I got in that room really helped me in early sobriety. There was no judgment. People were like, we're alcoholics. That's what we do without the program. We use, unless we have something to fill the hole in the soul. I went through the steps again with the new sponsor, and gradually my life started getting good again. The first incredible thing that happened was Laura came back after a few months of me doing the program, and show, rather than saying I'm sorry, acting differently. So she could see that I was trying to change and trying to do my best, and my family, I put them through hell. They were on the other side of the world having to deal with all this. That the relationship started, all the relationships started to heal. I realized that the place where I was working wasn't making me happy. I wasn't fulfilled. So I took the big step, which was scary, of leaving that job, although it was a dream job to most people. I wasn't happy. I didn't feel creatively fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was in control of my own destiny. I hated working for someone else. So we moved into a more expensive apartment because the last apartment was too many memories and it was just dark. I quit my job and we didn't have anything except we were in love. Everything had come back. I was going to meetings. I got my life back. I had my sobriety. Laura was long-term sober. She's got longer than me now. And we thought, okay, let's try and work together. Let's try and put our talents together and see what happens. So we started making videos. And no one cared at the beginning. But that's now turned into an incredible life that I love more than I ever thought I would. I'd never expected to be doing it. It's an amazing turn of events that I never would have, if I'd have tried to plan this, it never would have happened. It's complete God shot or complete accident. We made these videos and putting the music and the comedy together. Thankfully to you guys, you enjoy what we do, and thank you for following us on our journey. It means the world. And that thing that guy said to me, you never have to use or drink again a day at a time, ever, and you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams. That's worked again for me. So this program's worked twice, and the hole in the soul is filled. And it's been an amazing journey. So 6 years back this time, it's one day at a time. You guys can find all this out by, if you're struggling with addiction, go to a meeting and ask for help. That's all you need to do. So I love you guys. I'm so grateful to have you to talk to about this stuff, and it's amazing that you're with us on this journey. And thank you. What's this? Happy?
Can you say happy sober birthday to Dada?
You made it my best birthday ever.
If you're happy and you know it, stick out your tongue. If you're happy and you know it, stick out your tongue. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, stick out your tongue.